Ladies and gentlemen, that's right. Welcome back to another episode of the Hit the Green podcast, and it is Masters Week 2020. Masters finally in fucking November of all times. We're going to be at Augusta National. It's going to be a little strange with the azaleas not being in bloom. They're going to be, I wonder if they're even going to be out there. I'd imagine they're starting to die if they haven't already died, but fuck it. We get the Masters. I'm actually could not be more pumped. Getting the Masters along with an NFL Sunday is going to be pretty special. It's going to be pretty amazing. Usually the only NFL Sunday golf duo day really I can think of is Waste Management, where you get Sunday finish at the Waste Management there in Phoenix. And then you have the Super Bowl to follow, which is always a fun day to play some exotic bets in the betting market. But this one's unique. It's going to be unlike any other. So 2020 Masters, couldn't be more happy to be back, be off hiatus. It's been, 3 weeks now? Maybe a month we've been off. Had to go get some friends married, go send them off into the happier life. So that's been a lot of fun, but I'm really excited to be back and couldn't pick a better golf tournament to be back for, right, in the Masters. So what I want to do first is what I always want to do first. I want to tell you guys what I'm smoking. And if you guys can tell me what you're smoking down in the comments, that'd be awesome too, because I love smoking what you guys are smoking and checking out different strains. So drop it in the comments. Let me know what you're smoking. Today, I'm smoking Northern Lights. The grower is White Cloudz. This is testing in at 21.53% THC. And this is going to be very heavy on the sativa side of things. So it should keep us nice and bright for this Masters talk, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to follow my normal lighting trick, as you guys all know. And if you don't do this, I don't know what the fuck you're waiting for. I'm telling you, this is the way to do it for quite some time. And you know what? If you just want to be stubborn about it, then that's your prerogative. But I'm telling you guys, this is the way to spark a joint. And after we spark up, we're going to do a little 2019 Masters recap. We're going to talk through our finish there at the 2019 Masters before jumping into 2020. Beautiful. Got a joint. We got Masters Week. We got $1 million to first on Draftkings. I mean, life is beautiful. Life's beautiful, folks. Let's take it all in. Speaking of life being beautiful, life was never more beautiful than it was in April of 2019, before the pandemic, before, what seems like one of the most trying years in recent memory. We had Tiger Woods winning the Masters at 13 under. Let's jump back to that 2019 Masters, a simpler time, a better time in this world and country. If you remember, Francesco Molinari at that time, potentially the hottest golfer in the world. Molinari comes into Sunday with the lead. He led at, I believe, 13 under. Yeah. So Molinari was in the lead at 13 under. Tiger was 2 shots back. A very bunched up leaderboard with a lot of very, very talented top end guys there. So Molinari dumps into Race Creek on 12, takes his 5, takes his double bogey, ends up dropping into a tie for the lead with Tiger at 11 under. This is Sunday, back 9, coming off of Amen Corner. We're on 15. The lead group is on 15, and we have a 5-way tie at the top between Xander Schauffele, Tiger Woods, Francesco Molinari, Brooks Koepka, and Dustin Johnson. Murderers Row, all tied at 12 under. That's when, I'm not sure if you guys were watching this Masters. I'm sure you were if you're listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. Molinari's approach there on 15 clips the tiniest branch of a tree, ends up in the water. Molinari falls out of contention. Tiger goes on to make birdie on 15. Hits the most stones tee shot on 16, stiff to a couple of feet for another birdie. Is able to record a par on 17, and from there he just needed bogey on the 18th, which he was able to secure. Everyone is going crazy. Tiger's walking down the back behind the green as fans line the fucking rough back there, and he's walking through a cavalry of fans as everyone parades and cheers his name, and he's fist pumping, and then his son joins him for one of the most emotional moments in sports, certainly in golf, but really in all of sports. And man, with all this being said, I really wanted to do the 2019 Masters recap to relive the absolute, joy and euphoria of a Tiger Woods victory. Because I hate to tell you guys, coming into this version, the 2020 Masters, playing, here in November, and with Tiger's recent form, it was my only opportunity to talk about the GOAT himself, Tiger Woods, today. So that's really why I wanted to just sort of do a little 2019 Masters recap. Let us relive the Tiger win because, unfortunately, things set up pretty poorly for our boy this week. And, so much so that I'm actually going to be a full fade on him when it comes to the Draftkings Millionaire Maker. And that's what I would advise as well. It's just, it's not looking good for Tiger. The recent form is absolute trash. We know he knows his way around Augusta, but it just doesn't feel like the right time for Tiger, and I hope he can start trending his game in the right direction for April when we get the 2021 version of the Masters, because I think he can certainly be more live there if he can get a little bit of recent form going. We'll always have the memories of the 15th major championship for Mr. Woods there at Augusta last year. One of the defining sports moments that I can remember, and certainly one of the most defining moments of golf. And now, into the good stuff. The 2020 Masters. It's been a while since we've broken down a DraftKings field, guys, so I'm excited for this one. As you all probably know, we will be playing at Augusta National Golf Club. That is in Augusta, Georgia. Plays at a par 72, 7,475 yards. The greens are bent grass. The toughest stretch of the golf course, as we famously know. Number 11, 12, and 13, known as Amen Corner. You're going to see someone on Sunday, likely whoever makes it through Amen Corner, taking the least amount of damage. They're going to put themselves in a great position to win the golf tournament. So making it through that stretch of the golf course, particularly on Sunday, is going to be something to watch. The key component to Augusta in general is managing your expectations and managing the expectations of your game to make sure you miss your shots in the right places, right? Like, no golfer is going to be perfect all week. All of these guys are going to miss some shots. The important thing is who has the discipline to miss the shots in the correct places, on the correct side of the green, on the correct side of the hole, on the correct side of missed fairways. Are you gonna miss the rough on the correct side? So knowing where to miss and having the discipline to employ that game plan over 72 holes is, in my opinion, the most crucial component to success at Augusta National. Because of this, you'll see me really lean heavily on course history this week. Guys who have played this golf course and have played it well, I'm going to take a lot of stock in that. As a matter of fact, it might be one of the factors that I weigh heaviest in the model this week. So just keep that in mind that, Augusta National is a golf course with very, difficult green complexes, unique green complexes, and, coupled with some weather conditions that we can expect this week. So the weather forecast calls for thunderstorms on Thursday. We get potential rain Friday through Sunday. Winds around 5 to 8 miles an hour, but we could see, pockets of blustery conditions. So we could see gusts of wind upwards of that 5 to 8 mile per hour mark. And it always, guys, a weather play is in stack, or weather stack is in play. I'm sorry. If you want to go ahead and stack up guys that either have early or late tee times, that's always an option when there's, potential for blustery conditions, potential for pockets of wind that affect some players in the field but don't affect others. So a weather stack, certainly something we can think about here. given the flat pricing in the field, it might make it a bit more difficult to get to certain weather stacks, like a stars and scrub type of weather stack. So I haven't really played around with seeing how viable, from a pricing standpoint, weather stacking is. I might imagine it's a bit more difficult in a golf tournament like this, where you have fewer options in the bottom pricing range. But certainly you should be able to build some, balanced build lineups that are some tee time stacks. But with these, wind conditions, with the thunderstorms on Thursday and potential rain all week, I think that's only going to amplify the importance of course history and knowing where to miss on this golf course and knowing the positions to be in on this golf course in order to avoid large numbers, which Augusta National is capable of making you take a very large number, as we've seen in the past. So I'll be leaning heavily on course history for the golfers we talk about. We'll also be looking at recent form. We want players that have good recent form, and specifically good recent form tee to green, because overall you have to be a good tee to green player at Augusta National. You're either going to beat it by being stellar off the tee and gaining through driving distance, and or being stellar with your irons and on approach. So the tee to green game overall is really what you want to target here. But again, I will lean with course history, even if, a guy doesn't necessarily have a stellar history of being a tee to green, a dynamite tee to green player. If they do have the course history that shows that they can make their way around Augusta, that's going to trump anything for me this week. And I'll be totally transparent in that. That is going to trump anything for me this week. As a tiebreaker this week, because we're not seeing really any egregious ownership to any one player yet. I think the players that are garnering at least a decent amount of ownership certainly warrant it, and a lot of them are at the top end in pricing, and it makes sense that these guys are being high owned because they have a pretty high probability of winning the golf tournament. But ownership projection is going to be our tiebreaker. If all things are equal, and we have a couple guys that are in a similar pricing range, that have similar course history, similar recent form, similar tee to green numbers in their last 24 measured rounds, then we're just going to take the lower owned person, right? We're always going to look for the lower owned person. So in parsing out this field, because this is obviously a stacked field, it being a major championship, the Masters, there were some players that did look very good, but there were players around them that looked equally as good and are projected for less ownership. So I went ahead and I'm going to go ahead and tout the players that have lower ownership. And, I think this is an important point in daily fantasy sports. It's, you have to suss out what you think the probability of a certain outcome is. And if I think that two players have a very, similar probability at a particular outcome, let's say to win the golf tournament, then, I'm certainly going to go with the player that's garnering less public ownership, right? So sometimes you just have to sit back and think why a player's garnering the ownership that they are. If you do have access to ownership projections, of course, I give you guys ownership projections from fantasynational.com. But if you do have access to your own projections, I know Awesemo is a good projection source. There are other ones such as Roto Grinders or Roto Wire. They also offer projections. But if you can get your hands on some, at least semi-decent ownership projections, then it's going to make it a lot easier to decipher between these guys that are in the same pricing range, because you just go with the lower owned person, right? If two guys are pretty similar plays, then sometimes the public just gets a little too excited about a certain player. And you know what? I'm actually a little bit worried about that this week in one of our top shelf plays. So let's get right into it. We're going to get right into the top shelf plays. I'm going to respark this puppy. And we're going to get a drink of water. Our first top shelf play. The guy can hit it about 350 yards whenever he wants to. I'm talking about. He's the highest priced player in the field. It is none other than Mr. Bryson DeChambeau, priced at $11,200. 18% projected ownership. You know, seeing my Twitter feed over the last couple of weeks, I was expecting Bryson's projected ownership to be much higher than this. So 18%, I feel like that's pretty good, a pretty good number we're getting on Bryson ownership-wise. Over the last 24 measured rounds, he ranks 10th in this field in strokes gained tee to green. His tournament history certainly checks out. I mean, he's made the cut all 3 times he's played at this event, T29 to T38 and a T21, and he's made himself a much better player than he was in years past. So obviously the recent form has been great. We last saw Bryson at Shriners where he had a T8, shot a stellar first round though, and held that first round lead following his win at the U.S. Open. So all things are looking good for Bryson. He's checking every single box, so there's no reason that we should not mention him here, even though he does have the highest price tag. Again, the ownership's coming in at a reasonable number, and I think we might even get more of an ownership discount because a lot of people are going to go to this next guy, and he's the guy I was referencing being a bit concerned about with regard to ownership and his ownership ballooning. It's Jon Rahm at $10,500, 21.6% projected ownership currently, but Rahm made a hole-in-one in his practice round on Monday. Rahm also made another hole-in-one today, skipping one off the water. That just was a beauty. If you have not seen this shot, reminiscent of what VJ did some years back, I mean, this thing rolled into the hole like a putt. It was pure as could be. So I highly recommend you check out Jon Rahm's hole-in-one today on his birthday, nonetheless. Happy birthday, Jon Rahm. But, man, he's checking every box, but I suspect that people are going to see that video circulating social media. Rahm with back-to-back hole-in-ones. It's his birthday. There's so many reasons that I feel like the public might flock to Rahm this week, and he might end up being over-owned. So that is my concern, but, I mean, the guy's third in this field in strokes gained tee to green over the last 24 measured rounds. He came T9 at the Masters last year, solo fourth in 2018 and T27 in 2017. So Rahm's checking every box for us here. His recent form, of course, has been stellar as well. We last saw him at the Zozo where he tied for second. Before that, he had a T17 at the CJ Cup. So he looks to be a phenomenal play, and in a vacuum, he's my favorite play on the slate. But I do wonder if the social media narrative, with it being his birthday and having the back-to-back hole-in-ones during the practice rounds, I hope it doesn't balloon his ownership. I'll probably still fire up Rahm. He obviously seems to be really dialed in, and again, he's checking every box for us here this week. So Jon Rahm, $10,500. Let's hope that ownership doesn't climb much above this 21.6% projection. But if it does, we're just going to have to monitor it all week. And I'll drop an article for you guys with updated ownership projections on Wednesday night before we go live, before we lock for Thursday. So make sure to look out for that on Wednesday night to see if, Rahm has really ballooned up in projected ownership. But for now, this next guy's actually projected for more ownership than Jon Rahm. Dustin Johnson at $10,000, 24.2% projected ownership. And the $500 savings from Rahm to DJ and $1,200 from Bryson to DJ is pretty significant, especially in this field where I'm not really willing to dip down into the low 7K and even in the 6K range all that often. I would prefer not to. I'd prefer to stay, in the high 7K to, low 8K range if I can for most of my plays. So this week, saving some salary at the top is pretty important. So that $500 savings to DJ, I suspect, is why we're seeing the 24.2% projected ownership. That, along with, his stellar course history. He came T2 last year, was T10 in 2018, T4 in 2016, and T6 in 2015. So 4 top 10s in his last 4 starts. His recent form, of course, has been great. He had a T2 just last week at the Houston Open, almost won that thing. So, yeah, DJ, again, checking every box for us. He's first in this field in strokes gained tee to green over the last 24 measured rounds. So, DJ and Rahm, the two players that if you sort of just poo-poo ownership and just say I'm going to play the guys who I think are going to perform this week, stuffing DJ and Rahm into a lineup would be amazing. Let's see if that's too much for your salary cap. So for your remaining 4 players, that's going to leave you $7,375 a player. That's likely going to leave you too thin. Like I said, I don't really want to dip down into that low 7K and in the 6K range too much. But if you can find a build that you're comfortable with those two guys up top, I do like the idea of having the win equity that both of those guys carry in the same lineup. And DJ actually rounds out our top shelf plays. I think we only have 5 top shelf plays on the slate this week. Let's see, Bryson, JT, Rory. Yeah, Bryson, JT, Rory, DJ, Rahm are the 5 players that are priced above $10,000. So for this week, I guess we're going to go ahead and we're going to fade Rory. We're going to fade JT. Never feel comfortable fading guys that are that good. But the guys that we are playing just seem to be in a better position to win this tournament right now. So Bryson at 11.2, Rahm at 10.5, DJ at 10K. Again, Wednesday night, look out for that ownership article to drop. I'll drop some updated ownership so you guys can make some decisions based on where that ownership ends up tomorrow night. And then we can get into the mid-shelf plays after I get a little more water. And get even more stoned. Oh, yeah. The first mid-shelf play. Xander Schauffele, $9,800. 15.9% projected ownership. And Schauffele is another one of these players that's checking every box. It makes sense why he's being owned. 8th in this field over the last 24 measured rounds in strokes gained tee to green. Last year came T2 to Tiger Woods, of course. Was T50 in his debut in 2018. So 2 made cuts, and obviously the upside there of that T2 last year. So clearly a guy that likes it here around Augusta. Let's check the recent form for Xander. We last saw Xander at the Zozo. He came T17. Before that, had a solo second at the CJ Cup. So the recent form certainly has been where we want to see it. And yeah, the ownership really at this 15.9% isn't it's not egregious. As I mentioned, those top shelf plays are garnering north of 20% ownership, except for Bryson. So it makes sense with the win equity that those guys carry, but Xander himself has proven himself to be a big tournament golfer. He can win in stacked fields, and with that T2 again last year at Augusta, he's shown that he has the capability to game plan his way around the golf course. Like I mentioned, you want to be able to miss in the correct spots. Understand that this is going to be a golf tournament that's won over 72 holes, and not to press the issue. And I think Xander is the type of player that has the mental fortitude to do that. Another player who I think can certainly do that and has had success around Augusta is Webb Simpson at $9,300, 10.2% projected ownership. And Webb's tournament history, Webb's came T5 last year, T20 in 2018. He was cut in 2017, but came T29 in 2016 and T28 in 2015. So made 4 of his last 5 cuts here at Augusta with the T5 last year. So trending in the right direction. And Webb Simpson is a much better player now than I think he's ever been in his career. So I think we can expect a little bit of progress on his historical stats here at Augusta. Webb's recent history, T17 at the Zozo, T13 at the Shriners, so not stellar, but nothing to be concerned about. We can expect Simpson to gain strokes on approach, to hit plenty of fairways and absolutely can get red hot with the putter. So Webb's a guy I can certainly back at a $9,300 price tag. And again, the ownership here, 10.2%. Ownership being a tiebreaker for us this week. Getting him at a number that low feels really nice. So Webb Simpson, $9,300, 10.2% projected ownership is our second mid-shelf play. Our next mid-shelf play, and he's a guy I love to play, especially when it's time for the Masters. It's Patrick Piggy Reed, $9,200, 16% projected ownership. So Reed is carrying some ownership this week, but it makes sense because of the course history, of course. Reed, 27th in this field in strokes gained tee to green over his last 24 measured rounds. Reed's tournament history, he had T36 last year. Of course, he won the Masters in 2018. He was cut in 2017, T49 in 2016, and T22 in 2015. So made 4 of his last 5 cuts here around Augusta, and the win in 2018. Look, Reed is a gamer. He's a guy that, again, I've mentioned this multiple times before. If he finds himself in contention, he will absolutely grind to stay there. He's a winner, a guy who I think wins golf tournaments more than people would like to give him credit for. And yeah, I just expect Reed to be in contention this week. He's been in good recent form. Last we saw him was at the Zozo. He came T14, so nothing to worry about there. And again, tee to green numbers, 27th in this field. That's plenty fine for Patrick Reed, a guy who can also, similar to Webb, go absolutely nuclear with the putter if things get going. So Patrick Reed, $9,200. 16% projected ownership. I was hoping to get a slightly lower number, but I still think this is totally fine for Reed, a player with the win equity that he has at this price tag. A player that I was also expecting to be pretty high owned, and he is Bubba Watson. $9,000 flat, 20.1% projected ownership, but Bubba has been on fire, and we know that Bubba likes it here around Augusta. So it's kind of just a no-brainer play, it feels like, this week, especially at this $9,000 flat price tag. Bubba came T4 at the Zozo and T7 at the CJ Cup. Was gaining a ton of strokes tee to green in doing that. Let's see. In this field, Bubba Watson's second in strokes gained tee to green over the last 24 measured rounds. So been absolutely pounding the ball. And, I mean, we know he has the win here. And he's made 4 of his last 5 cuts here as well, with a T12 last year and a T5 in 2018. So the upside of a win and some pretty good recent results in the last couple years to boot. Bubba just looks to be a smash play this week, even at 20.1% projected ownership. $9,000 is, man, it's cheap for Bubba for how things are lining up this week. So Bubba Watson, $9,000, 20.1% projected ownership. He seems like a smash play. If you can get a good number on him at a book, maybe like if someone's hanging like a 40-1, I have no clue what the odds are. Maybe go check out Draftkings Sportsbook if you're in a state where that's legal. But if you can get like a 40-1 on Bubba, I feel like that's a pretty good spot to be in. The next mid-shelf play is another former winner of this event, Adam Scott. $8,900, 11.5% projected ownership. We last saw Scott at the Houston Open last week, came tied for 32nd. A meh result, right? But, you know, he's just getting his feet wet, right? Getting a little competition golf under his feet before, you know, firing up for the Masters. So I completely understand a somewhat lackluster performance last week, but when it comes to the Masters, you expect Scott to be anything but lackluster. His recent history, he was T18 last year, T32 in 2018, T9 in 2017, T42 in 2016, and T38 in 2015. So 5 for 5 and has made in his last 5 and made cuts. It's exactly what you want to see. As far as strokes gained data is concerned, Scott coming in 39th in this field in strokes gained tee to green over his last 24 measured rounds. Somewhat concerning, yes, but Scott's a guy that doesn't play all that often and has shown the ability to just sort of flash when coming off of a layoff. So it was nice to at least see him play last week in the Houston Open. That somewhat surprises me. Scott's a guy that sometimes will just come back for the big event, but it was nice to see him play last week and get some rounds of competitive golf under his belt. And that makes me like him a bit more this week. I think he should be a bit more dialed in. So Adam Scott, certainly a guy I can get behind at that $8,900 price tag. The next mid-shelf play is Tony Finau at $8,800, 22.8% projected ownership, and I was kind of surprised to see the ownership number that high on Finau. But Finau's been hitting the ball extremely well. 5th in this field over the last 24 measured rounds in strokes gained tee to green. And he plays the Masters well in his only 2 go-rounds at Augusta. T5 last year and T10 in 2018. So improved year over year and 2 top 10 finishes with the top 5 last year. And in those 2 events has gained 19.2 strokes total over the field. So yeah, Finau certainly looks like a guy who likes it here around Augusta. It's even at this ownership, it's going to be hard to fade Finau. I certainly want to at least sprinkle him in some lineups. Let's take a look at his recent results here. So Finau came T24 at the Houston Open last week. Decent enough finish, again, similar to Scott, just getting some competitive golf in ahead of the Masters. Nothing wrong with that. I like to see it. So, yeah, Tony Finau, $8,800 and 22.8% projected ownership. Even at that projected ownership, I'm still willing to give it a ride. The next mid-shelf play is Hideki Matsuyama at $8,700, 17.3% projected ownership. And Matsuyama, another guy who's just been striking the ball really well, came T2 at the Houston Open last week, so clearly the recent form checks that box. In this field over the last 24 measured rounds, Matsuyama's 4th in strokes gained tee to green and plays the Masters well. Made 5 of his last 5 cuts. T32 last year, 19th in 2018, T11 in 2017, T7 in 2016, and solo 5th in 2015. So, yeah, I mean, Matsuyama, another guy that's checking every box. Again, a guy that's carrying some fairly decent ownership at 17.3%. But when you're doing everything that we're looking for, right, I mean, at some point you just take your guys, and these guys aren't carrying enough ownership for me to run away yet. So, again, I reiterate. Look out for that ownership article on Wednesday night where I'll be dropping updated ownership. It's going to be really important, guys. The next mid-shelf play is Jason Day at $8,400, 12.3% projected ownership. And Day played really well last week. He was absolutely striping the driver. And I love to see that. When Jason Day is striping the driver, he's certainly going to be live. His course history is great. T5 last year at the Masters, T20 in 2018, T22 in 2017, T10 in 2016, and T28 in 2015. He's 49th in this field in strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained tee to green over the last 24 measured rounds, which is the red flag here. But again, last week he was absolutely striping the ball, so I like to see the direction it was trending. He came T7 there at the Houston Open. So yeah, I mean, Jason Day for $8,400 to get a guy with his pedigree, I think it's an absolute steal. So yeah, 12.3% projected ownership's too low. Jason Day, $8,400, 12.3% projected ownership. Fire him up this week, guys. The next mid-shelf play is Paul Casey at $8K flat, 6.9% projected ownership. And Casey he's solid around Augusta. not stellar. Let's take a look here. So Casey's tournament history, he was cut last year, but T15 in 2018, 6th in 2017, T4 in 2016, and T6 in 2015. So outside of being cut last year, he shows definite top 15, top 10 upside. And at a flat 8K price tag, he's one of the only guys that really has that upside. There are really maybe two other guys that do in that pricing range. So I love him for that reason. The recent form, hasn't been as good as you'd like to see. He was T35 at the Zozo, T69 at the CJ Cup. So he hasn't been playing great. But, Casey's a guy that usually plays well in majors. He played well at the PGA Championship earlier this year. He played well at the U.S. Open. We can expect Casey to at least show decent form. And again, the results in 4 of the last 5 years at the Masters have been pretty spectacular. So I think we forgive the miscut in 2019 and go ahead and fire up Paul Casey at a flat 8K, especially sitting down at this 6.9% ownership projection. Sliding him into one lineup is worth it with him projected for that low of ownership. The next mid-shelf play is Louis Oosthuizen at $7,900. Mr. Oosthuizen bringing his own mattress. Wes would love to. Wes pointed out in the U.S. Open show that Louis travels everywhere to every golf tournament with his own mattress, and I can't get over that fact. Coming in at 14.5% projected ownership in that $7,900 price tag. Louis is just a guy who I want some shares of in major championships. He just loves to play in majors. He's 19th in this field in strokes gained tee to green over the last 24 measured rounds, which was actually better than I expected to see when I went to take a look at him. It was, surprising to see that he had performed that well tee to green. As far as tournament history goes for Louis, T29 last year, T12 in 2018, T41 in 2017, T15 in 2016, T19 in 2015. So made 5 of his last 5 cuts. The recent form's been good. As far as his tee to green game's gone, the recent results have been mixed. T48 at the CJ Cup, T19 at the Shriners, though. And Louis, another guy who can sort of just show up out of nowhere. Similar to the next guy we'll talk about, but Louis is a guy who can find his game out of nowhere, especially when it's really time to shine, and that's in the majors. So Louis Oosthuizen, who has come second at this event before, so has massive upside, of course. At a $7,900 price tag, the ownership's definitely fair. Definitely fair down at that 14.5%. The next mid-shelf play is Justin Rose, $7,700, 13.7% projected ownership. And I was surprised that the ownership projection for Rosie wasn't higher. 7,700 is pretty egregious pricing for this guy. He was cut last year, but T12 in 2018, second in 2017, T10 in 2016, tied for second in 2015. Rosie loves this golf tournament. And he can absolutely smash it around Augusta. The recent form has been bad, and that's probably what's dragging down Rose's ownership projection here. But he did come T17 at the Zozo and showed some signs of life there. So at least he's trending in the right direction. And to get a player of Rose's caliber at this price tag and this ownership feels like a steal. So let's go ahead and fire up Justin Rose, $7,700, 13.7% projected ownership. And the final mid-shelf play is Mr. Matthew Fitzpatrick. $7,600, 13.7% projected ownership. And Fitzpatrick, I believe, had a good finish at this event last year. T21 last year, T38 in 2018, 32nd in 2017, and T7 in 2016. as far as his strokes gain data go in this field over the last 24 measured rounds, let's see, where did we go? There he is. 34th strokes gain tee to green, so not stellar. Fitzpatrick, a guy that doesn't hit it very far off the tee, but you can usually count on him to hit plenty of fairways, and especially around a golf course that, you know, he seems to enjoy, right, with that course history that I just read off to you guys. So Fitzpatrick, T26 at the Zozo, T12 at the CJ Cup, so he's been churning out some decent results here recently. And at this $7,600 price tag, we're not asking him to win the event. So Matthew Fitzpatrick, a guy that's really checking every box at a $7,600 price tag and only 13.7% projected ownership. Both he and Rose look really good to me at their respective price tags and ownership projections. And that is going to take us into the SCHWAG bag plays. Before we do that, I'm going to get some more water. The first SCHWAG bag play, Cameron Smith, not to be confused with Cameron Davis. Cameron Smith, $7,300, 17.1% projected ownership. And Cam Smith, in this field over the last 24 measured rounds, 35th in strokes gained tee to green, which down in this pricing range is sort of just a neutral, right? Like I can't fault the guy for not being an absolutely stellar ball striker at this price tag. But his tournament history checks the box. T51 last year, T5 in 2018 though, and that's what you want to see. You want to see that kind of upside out of a play, or that type of potential upside at the very least out of a play down here in this pricing range. To get that is pretty unique. So for that reason, I like Cameron Smith. You know, he's by all intents and purposes checking the box for tournament history. He's checking the box as far as strokes gained tee to green go. He's checking the ownership box in that he's not overly owned, especially for his pricing range, and I don't really like many of these guys in the tier around him. And his recent results have been good as well. T4 at the Zozo, 11th at the CJ Cup, T24 at the Shriners. You know, when you get a guy down in this pricing range who's doing everything you want to see, you go ahead and you fire him up. He's your guy. So Cam Smith's our guy this week down in the low 7K range. We have a couple other plays down here, but certainly Cam Smith looking like one of the better ones at $7,300 and 17.1% projected ownership here in the SCHWAG bag. The next SCHWAG bag play is Lee Westwood at $7,200 and 13.2% projected ownership. And Westwood, he just has good course history here, and he's been playing surprisingly well lately. It kind of shocked me. So he was actually cut last time we saw him at the Houston Open, but on the European Tour, he'd been playing well, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, just had a T30 there at the Italian Open on the European Tour. Shot 4 under in that final round, so trending in the right direction at the very least for Westwood. And again, his tournament history is much better than I expected to see. T18 in 2017, T2 in 2016, and T46 in 2015. Yeah, for a guy at $7,200, sign me up. 13.2% projected ownership. I'm not worried about it. So Lee Westwood, $7,200, that 13.2% projected ownership. I'll certainly fire up. I do, however, prefer Kevin Kisner at $7,100, 9.3% projected ownership, lower price tag on Kisner. His course history, T21 last year, T28 in 2018, T43 in 2017, T37 in 2016. He's checking that box clearly. As far as his strokes gain data goes, he's 40th in this field tee to green, but another guy who doesn't hit the ball very far, but can certainly gain on approach. He's 9th in this field in strokes gained approach over the last 24 measured rounds, so he can attack this golf course that way, and he's shown that he can have some relative success around this golf course with those recent results around Augusta that I just read for you. So Kiz looking like a guy that's a bit underowned, and I'm surprised. He's not a guy that usually goes underowned. Last we saw him was at the Zozo. He came T14. No reason not to like Kiz this week. So surprised to see him sub 10%. He, along with Cameron Smith, is one of my favorite plays down here in the low 7K range. So Kevin Kisner, $7,100, 9.3% projected ownership. One of my favorite plays of the SCHWAG bag. The next SCHWAG bag play at a flat 7K is Ian Poulter, 10.6% projected ownership. And Poulter, as far as strokes gained data goes, is 59th in this field in strokes gained tee to green, and that's our concern. His recent form hasn't been great, but he did come T12 here in 2019, T44 in 2018, T49 in 2016, and T6 in 2015. So made his last 4 cuts here when he's played the event. But the recent form has not been great for Poulter. Let's see what his recent results are. T12 at the CJ Cup. So actually, he is trending in the right direction at the very least, but the tee to green numbers are very poor over the last 24 measured rounds. So that's something that we're going to have to hope sort of turns around for Poulter. And at the very least, it looks like it is trending in the right direction, or was trending in the right direction at the CJ Cup. So Ian Poulter at a flat 7K price tag, 10.6% projected ownership, looking like a solid play this week. A guy who I really like at his ownership projection is Bernd Wiesberger, $6,900 and 4.3% projected ownership. I was surprised to see this given Wiesberger's course history around Augusta. T24 in 2018, T43 in 2017, T34 in 2016, T22 in 2015. So made his last 4 cuts here, and that's pretty much enough for me down at this $6,900 price tag. That's really all I need to see. He's 53rd in strokes gained tee to green over the last 24 measured rounds in this field. I get it. He hasn't been playing all that great as of recent. Let's see. He plays on the European Tour. I believe he had a decent finish in his last European Tour event. Let's take a look here. Yeah, Wiesberger came T16 at the Italian Open. So with a T16 finish in his last showing in an okay field, it's pretty weak field at the Italian Open, but at least a decent showing there for Wiesberger, showing some decent form at the very least. So the fact that he's got the course history, the recent form isn't in the negative box, along with the fact that he's a guy that is a class player, a guy in the official world golf rankings that ranks 37th right now. So, for someone to be priced all the way down here at $6,900, we have to take a shot on some of these guys if we want to pay up at the top. So why not take a chance on Bernd Wiesberger, a guy who's a class player, has shown success around Augusta, and at least seems to be starting to round into form. The next player we're going to talk about, and it's wild we're talking about him. Especially down in this pricing range. Francesco Molinari, $6,700 and 6.4% projected ownership. I mean, just do it. Put him in one. Close your eyes. Do it. He looked better at the Houston Open last week. Showed at least a sign of life. And again, I mean, this guy was whiskers away from competing to win this golf tournament last year, and now we see him priced down at $6,700. T5 last year, T20 in 2018, T33 in 2017. He's made the cut all 3 times he's played this golf course. I mean, at the very least, he showed us some life. Again, he showed us some life last week, and that's really all we need to see at a $6,700 price tag. He came T15 last week at the Houston Open. I mean, let's go. Let's fire the man up. He carries a tremendous amount of upside if he is rounding into form, and we do see, flashes of that player that we saw about 12 months ago. or a little more than that now. But man, 6.4% projected ownership and $6,700. All he has to do is make the cut, and he's done that every time he's played this event. I'm loving Molinari as a pay down option, and there's really not much I like down here. So I'll probably land on a lot of Molinari in my builds that I need someone as a salary savings. The last SCHWAG bag player for the 2020 Masters is Mr. Justin Harding. $6,300, 2.8% projected ownership, and he really is a dart throw. We'll see if you even really need to dig down in this pricing range. But if you do, he's the only guy I would really take. 57th in this field over the last 24 measured rounds in strokes gained tee to green. So obviously not good there. But we did see Harding splash here last year. Harding finished, what did he come in? T12 last year. So, maybe he's just a guy that likes Augusta, right? Like, we typically don't see rookies perform that well at Augusta, and that's a common theme here. I'm not touting any debutantes. I don't really want to mess with anyone who's never played Augusta before here, because it is important to know where to miss on this golf course. And I think to have played it in a tournament setting before is actually important. It's unique in that sense, in my opinion. So for Harding to have come T12 last year in his first crack at it, it tells me that maybe this guy is just, is comfortable around this golf course, or it suits his eye for some reason. Harding came T30 at the Scottish Championship, then followed that up with a T38 at the Houston Open last week. So not stellar recent form, but, nothing really to be too concerned about, especially for a guy priced at $6,300 and being owned at 2.8%. So if Harding can sniff a top 10 or even a top 20 this week, make a cut, he's certainly going to pay off at that $6,300 price tag, and he opens up so many builds that will be unique. Again, if you guys want to leave a couple $100 on the table as far as salary goes, I think that's smart to differentiate yourself from the Millionaire Maker. But yeah, Harding's just going to open the door to so many unique lineup constructions that allow us to get access to those plays at the top above $10,000. So that does it for this 2020 Masters edition. Let's go out there and get a fucking millionaire winner this week, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed being back. I absolutely loved it. Felt a little bit rusty, but feels good to be back in it. And I'm definitely going to be coming out with these every week. So if you could please spread the word, tell everyone you know who you think would enjoy watching these, who would enjoy playing DraftKings golf, who enjoys watching the Masters. Please spread the word. If you can download the podcast on whichever platform you listen to it, Spotify, Apple Music, that would be much appreciated. Please subscribe to the channel on YouTube, like the video on YouTube, comment, let me know what you're smoking, and please let me get some messages this weekend of people with some sweats for the Millionaire Maker. This week, actually, guys, I meant to mention, this week we are just top 50 in ties. No more rule with 10 shots within 10 shots of the leader because of darkness. They want to avoid darkness over the weekend. So 6 out of 6 lineups. If you can get 6 out of 6 golfers through the cut, please shoot me over those lineups. I would love to cheer for them. I would love to follow them. We're going to get a big hit this week, guys. I can feel it deep in my bones. I love you guys. Peace.